students and viewers, I thought why not to contact you through this social media. And I would like to say to you all, stay safe and stay home. How are you, my dear students and viewers? I hope you shall be all fine. Well, due to this issue of this problem of virus all around the world, uh, almost these academic activities have been seized. So I thought, why not to contact you through this social media and try to give you at least some benefit of the knowledge that we actively shared while we were in our classes. So keeping it in my mind, so I have tried to connect with you people through this medium of technology. Uh, but before I started, I would like to say to you all that stay safe and stay home, and try to make the most of time while being at home, reading, studying, and being happily united with your family members. So the topic that I have chosen for this online lecture, well, I would try to make it somewhat formal, proper as we do it in the class. But I hope it will be a very interesting share. So, the person we are going to talk about, he is a literary critic, he is a poet critic, and furthermore, he is a playwright. He's such an important person. He lived in America, then he left for England and became its permanent citizen in 1927. Let me share with you two important quotes of him from lines of poetry. April is the cruelest month. Yes, it is. We all are witnessing it. Do I dare disturb the universe? Yes, the person who is going to disturb the universe, uh, I would present him, and he might disturb you with his ideas. It is T.S. Eliot and his literary essay, critical essay, tradition and the individual talent. So, T.S. Eliot was actually anti Romanticism. He was born in 1888, got and learned various languages during his early years of education. At university, Harvard University, he took classes with Irving Babbitt, a literary critic and admirer of French symbolism. He was impressed from his personality. And another impression, a very important influence that is on his personality, it is that of George Santayana, who once said, if you do not remember the past, you will forget it. And if you do not remember the past and if you forget it, you are condemned to repeat it. Katariya beer check in George Santayana, he said, if you do not remember the past, you are condemned to repeat it. So anyway, T.S. Eliot was a staunch classicist, he says, but there are inconsistencies what he says and what he writes. So remember classicism, form following the ways of the ancient writers, masters. Presenting familiar objects, familiar plots, familiar places, everything within certain check, and its opposite, and urbanization in classicism. These were the main traits. And then Romanticism, more emphasis on individuality, inspiration, imagination, unfamiliar objects, situations, plots. Romanticism. Plain language, ordinary language. 1798, their manifesto in publication of lyrical ballads, a combined venture of S.T. Coleridge and William Wordsworth. This was Romanticism. So, T.S. Eliot would consider himself a classicist, not a romanticist. And let me tell you that his uh, men and his teacher at Harvard, Irvin Babbitt, with whom he took lectures in literary criticism. Uh, he took lectures in criticism from this Irvin Babbitt. Irvin Babbitt was an staunch enemy of romanticism. He didn't like it. So anyway, by 1927, he gets permanent citizenship in England, and he mostly in his writings or in public gatherings of the literary geniuses, he would always claim that I am a classist as far as literature is concerned, I am a royalist as far as politics is concerned, I am an Anglo Catholic as far as religion is concerned. During this time period, he evolves friendship in 1914, evolves friendship with Ezra Pound, the leader of the Imagism movement. He publishes his first poem, The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock. It gets attention. Then, but his main works were still yet to come. His work, The Wasteland, in 1922, it it attracts lots of attention from the readers and from the critics because of the innovative style used in it. Uh, in this work, he tells us about the spiritual emptiness of European civilization, because 1922, by this time, Europe had gone through a very dangerous, ravaging world war. And that world war had shattered their belief in the knowledge they had accumulated and implemented and believed in through all these centuries after Renaissance. They thought that now, not only Europeans, but also the world is now much better and it is in safe hands. But neither their political philosophy and its product democracy could make peace possible, nor their technology could save their societies from destruction, bloodbath, nor their system of economy and trade could save them. So this was a period of pessimism. And again, the question of life surfaced, what it is. So, but anyway, Westland was a critique in other way on the contemporary problems of Western society. And then there are certain other works of T.S. Eliot that got prominence. There are his plays, The Murder in the Cathedral, and then Family Reunion. And but his literary criticism got too much eminence, and it got lots of attention as compared to his literary works, if I dare say it, in my personal opinion, whatever I have gone through T.S. Eliot. But let me tell you that the work that should really be considered as a brilliant work as compared to the other works of T.S. Eliot, it is four quartets. It still garners praise from the various readers. Well, but the topic that we are going to discuss about T.S. Eliot is neither his poems nor his plays. It is his literary essay, that of tradition and the individual talent. Tradition and the individual talent. By tradition, we know that we mean that tradition, that something that comes from the past, comes from the older generations, something that is a belief, that is some practice, and we honor it, we follow it, we give it importance, we avoid breaking it, its way of living. So traditions are upheld. And it is something of historical importance. It has connection with history. It is not something that is lost in history. It is something that survives history. Tradition. So, tradition and the individual talent. But here, the tradition is not that tradition. Here, tradition, if we limit it, it is within the ambit of literature, literary tradition. Because this essay is an essay of criticism. It is an analysis about the works, literary works, and a kind of it has got judgments. This essay got judgments in criticism, critical judgments as to what is good poetry and how good poems can be produced or have been produced. What are the processes involved in producing good poetry? The genre that he takes up in this essay is poetry. Well, so tradition, which tradition? Literary tradition. And then individual talent. He is going to explain it as well. That how tradition and individual talent, whose individual talent? A poet's individual talent. How they can both be analyzed, seen together, and how one helps the other or other gets help from the other. How tradition helps individual talent and how individual talent gets help from tradition. Or is there, or is it a right thing to say that individual talent is obtained in isolation? It is something that is completely detached from the tradition, from previous works. They are not the cause of its production, cause of its existence. Are the two things interdependent or not? Could we say that, is it a right statement to say that Shakespeare is Shakespeare because of Christopher Marlowe? And Christopher Marlowe is Marlowe because of his reading of certain ancient writers? Can we regard individual talent of any poet of composing poetry, great poetry? Is there any connection or any indebtedness, if we use the word indebtedness, indebtedness towards those past works? These are the basic things. Is there a genius out of nothingness? A talent abruptly comes up without going through the talented and the genius works of Any other writers? So this is basically, it is too abstract and vague. I'm not saying it. Critics say that this work is quite abstract. We have judgments from T.S. Eliot in this essay. We have his pronouncements, but his his statements lack demonstration. And then the reader has to imagine how to explain, how to exemplify this statement, and how to justify it. This is important. So anyway, tradition and the individual talent. Let me read it from this anthology, the Norton Anthology, Theory and Criticism. I like it too much, and I must pay my respects to the various contributors. Well, I'm going to read it from this Norton Anthology. In English writing, we seldom speak of tradition, though we occasionally apply its name in deploring its absence. So, tradition, its significance is made clear in the very opening line, that it is but a praise word, and its absence will be greatly missed and will cause a work of art having a lower status. If some work is not traditional, as far as I understand it, if from this line, if some work is not traditional here in this meaning, it lacks something very important. Very important. I have already made it clear, tradition, how briefly I tried to explain it. Tradition, something, a literary history, the literary characteristics from the past great masters, great works, genius works, how they wrote them, and then so we read some great work. For example, if a writer read a greater work, we always say that this writer is a great writer because of the influences of such and such writer, such and such great writer, not ordinary writer. So that is the tradition. But let us look at in detail how T.S. Eliot defines it. Let me go to the next paragraph. Certainly the word is not likely to appear in our appreciations of living or dead writers. Every nation, every race has not only its own creative, but its own critical turn of mind, and is even more obvious of the shortcomings and limitations of its critical habits than of those of its creative genius. So according to T.S. Eliot, that nations take pride in their achievements. For example, in their literary achievements. As far as criticism is concerned, it might not be liked by the individuals, and even same is the case with nations and races. They might not like criticism. They would certainly like to be praised about their creative acts. So if we look into the broader, in a broader aspect, culture, for example, for example, Egypt would take pride about their pyramids. Something creative, something achievement. But as far as criticism is concerned, mainly not only the individuals, but T.S. Eliot says even nations and races would not like criticism. But then, why does he say? He says, but it is important to give importance to criticism. Criticism is like breathing. If you stop it, you stop living. You are dead. Because a dead is one who stops movement, making progress, and decays. And so when the faculty of criticism evaluating the things, when it stops, thinking stops, and life becomes dead for any nation, for any race. So anyway, coming back to the within this field of literature, creative works are important. Poetry is important. Novels are important. They are matter of pride. Great novels, great poetry produced by any nation. They are genius minds. It is great, but criticism is a matter of breathing. They should never stop criticism. And then he says, though I haven't read it, but it is here that he talking about his own nation, the British people, the English people, that we people consider French people as less spontaneous, means less creative, and because they are more critical, they are doing a lots of work on criticism. So we consider that they are less creative, and we English people are more creative. So creativity and activity of creativeness is better than critical faculty or critical activity. But he says